Yay.
So yeah, in case you didn't notice, this is the first time we're trying the view from Peru on camera, which is great because we both have so much experience. In case you were wondering who this is not my cousin. We get that a lot. This is Paola and I's dear friend, Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for being a guinea pig on this run.
Always happy.
No problem. And yeah, so go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, cool. Well, as Chris said, my name is Jackie. I am from Texas, or I grew up in Texas, and then I kind of bounced around the world. I was here in Peru, then I went to Brazil, then I went to Spain, then I came back to Peru. And right now I work for a travel agency called Inca Expert Travel, and I've been working there for about 4 years.
It's been 4 years?
Yeah, almost.
Wow.
In November it'll be 4 years.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
No. So you're here, you're really into travel, as you just mentioned, all those different countries, and this is, your job now. So that's why I wanted to have you on here. It's because a lot of people that listen to this, they are interested in Peru.
Sure.
Right? And not just on the missions aspect, not just from the ministry aspect, but also, people want to know what to do.
Yeah, Peru's
and what's going on.
Yeah.
So I figured, who better than ask than our awesome tourist buddy. So what would you say, in your own personal opinion, from where you've gone and what you've seen, where would you say are the top 3 places you love to go or to recommend to people to go in Peru?
In Peru, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the first one would be Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is one of the wonders of the world. Obviously, the majority of people who come to Peru want to see Machu Picchu. And of course, being a wonder of the world, it's definitely something that if you come to Peru and you don't go, you kind of missed it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is like your opportunity to check a wonder of the world off the list. So that would be top for sure. The second, I would actually recommend the Amazon. So, the Amazon is really unique because it's only found in Peru and in Brazil. So if you're going to come to Peru and you want to do something completely unique, this is like the perfect opportunity. And the Amazon's really cool for all kinds of reasons. I mean, you have all of the different animals, you have a lot of different vegetation and things like that that's super cool. So if you're into animals or you're into plants, you're going to love it. The scenery is also usually just beautiful. I went to the Amazon actually 3 weekends ago. Loved it. I'm not into bugs, and I still loved it. So that's saying something. I had an amazing time. So I really think the Amazon has something for everyone. It's also a great location to go for families. The kiddos are usually super into the fun animals and things like that. And then depending on which part of the Amazon you go to, you get something different as well. Sometimes the Amazon, it's all about the specific type of macaw, but then in other places of the Amazon, there's a lot of waterfalls. So it kind of just depends on what you're looking for. And then the third, although this is kind of cheating because it's sort of the same area, is I would say probably Cusco and the Sacred Valley, which you have to go to get to Machu Picchu anyways. So it's super easy to fit that one in, when you're coming to travel to Peru. But Cusco is amazing because Cusco is a, UNESCO World Heritage Site. So the architecture is really neat. The city's really lovely. There's a lot of cafes and history, and it's just a cool mix of everything. And then the Sacred Valley, I mean, I'm very into scenery and views, as you'll probably figure out as we go through this podcast. So Sacred Valley, I love. I mean, beautiful mountain scenery, beautiful rivers, and then it's also great for adventure activities. So if you're into hiking or water rafting or something like that, I mean, it's the perfect place to go. Yeah.
I remember my parents, we had a missions trip in Huaraz or Cusco or something.
Oof, uh-huh.
And they took everyone whitewater rafting as one of the adventures.
Oh, wow.
One of the last things to do on the missions trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 4. And they took me.
Wow.
Okay. They didn't know what else to do with me. And the rafting guide was like, he'll be fine,
Oh.
Just, you're the mom, right? Just sit down in the middle of the raft and, hold on to him and it'll be good. I was traumatized until my senior year of high school when we went to Cusco for a senior trip. And
You're oh no.
It was a nightmare because I'm a little kid,
yeah,
basically a toddler. Giant waves cried the entire time.
Right. We definitely recommend.
But as an adult, it is fun. I do like it as an adult.
Sure. I mean, we definitely recommend for stuff like that, the kids be at least 8. So. Yeah. And this is why. If you want to know why, listen to Chris's story.
Yeah, it was horrifying. Now, we both live in Lima.
Mm-hmm.
We both love Lima.
Yep.
So we were just kind of talking about Peru at large.
Mm-hmm.
What about Lima? What are like the 3 top things you recommend to people to come to do?
Sure. I mean, so Lima is like just a large urban metropolitan city. You know, it's not. I think a lot of people, when they come to Peru, what they're really looking for is that history, that culture, and not that Lima doesn't have all of that, but its bigger kind of focus is the culinary scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Peru has been the top culinary destination in the world for 8 years. I think just this year, Italy beat us out just a teeny bit. So hopefully maybe next year we're back again. But, you know, Peru has amazing gastronomy, and Lima has some of the top-rated restaurants in the world. So obviously the first thing you want to do when you come to Lima is you want to eat. You can just eat your way through the city, you know, whether it be fine dining or whether it be kind of like hole-in-the-wall places. I mean, Lima, just to spend a day in Lima to eat is great.
We got a little bit of everything.
Yes, it's a great idea. After that, I would say the Larco Museum. Have you been to the Larco Museum?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh,
Is that the one here in
Chris?
Miraflores?
No, it's in oh no, you're gonna catch me. Pueblo Libre.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
What is it? Oh, I get all the museums confused.
Yeah, so Museo Larco is awesome because it's a museum. One, it's beautiful just because of kind of the ambiente. I'm speaking my Spanglish today. Like the environment there is really beautiful. I mean, it's got a beautiful garden. It has a cafe that's connected to the museum that's just very dreamy. If you're looking for a great date spot in Lima, it's a great option. But yeah, so the Larco Museum, though, they have the largest collection of pre-Columbian art, I think, in the world.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they also have been named one of the best museums in Latin America. So, like, if you're going to be here, it's definitely a place to go. But something that I thought was really cool when I went to the Larco Museum and what made me kind of love it is that they talk a lot about the way that the Incans saw the world. So, like, the way that they incorporated their worldview into their art and into their tapestries and, you know, all of that. And it's amazing because they tell you all about, you know, oh, the serpent means this or the condor means this. And then when you go to Cusco and Machu Picchu, you see it everywhere because you're like, oh, and then you understand. You're like, oh, I know what this means and I know why they created it this way and I know what they were trying to get out of here. And so for me, it's a really cool place if my clients are going to come to Peru and they can spend a day in Lima. I think it's like the perfect place to start your trip because you get to understand that. And then when you go to see all these ruins and things, you see all of that and you get it. So
that's really cool.
Yeah,
I need to check that place out.
You should. Yes, you cannot have lived here for so long and not have gone to the Larco Museum.
Oh, it's like
yes.
A lot of my coworkers, like every time there's like a 3 or 4 day holiday, they're going and they're traveling because it's like,
sure. I mean,
they're here for like 2 years, 4 years. Whereas like I grew up here, so it's kind of like, you know, like when you live in Chicago, you don't do the Sears Tower. When you live in New York, you don't see Ellis Island.
Right. No, I mean, but it's definitely worthwhile. Yeah. And, you know, the perfect, if you live here, you know, or whether you're just here or not, you know, you can go to the Larco Museum, do maybe an hour, 2-hour tour, and then make a reservation in the cafe right after that. And so it's perfect.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So that was...
Oh, sorry.
Food?
That's number 2.
Yeah. Food, Larco Museum.
Larco Museum. And then after that, I would probably say the Huaca Pucllana. Have you been to the Huaca Pucllana?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that place is really cool.
Yeah. So the Huaca Pucllana is a ruin that was preserved kind of just right in the middle of the city. So it's really cool because you have this, you know, huge metropolitan city, 11 million people. So high rises and bustling streets and everything. And then right kind of smack dab in the middle, they've preserved this massive pre-Incan ruin. Yeah. So it's really cool because you can go and you can see the ruin, you can see the way it was preserved. When you stand on top of the ruin, you're seeing, you know, all of the skyscrapers and you can even see to the ocean. But it's really neat. It's kind of like, here's this living part of history, you know, so I do love the Huaca Pucllana, and it's neat because the Huaca Pucllana is not the only Huaca in Lima. So once you see that one, you might see some others around and you're like, oh, there's another one. So it's kind of a cool way to get to know history in Lima as well. And of course, speaking of food, the Huaca Pucllana also has an amazing restaurant that looks out. One of his favorites. You know, the Huaca Pucllana has a restaurant that looks out on the ruin, and so it's super cool whether you're there during the day, so you get to see the ruin just in its entirety, or at night they kind of light up the ruin, so it's this very magical feel. So yeah, that's a really,
I've never
really cool
done
spot.
like the historical tour, to be honest.
That's what I was asking.
I've been to the restaurant.
Oh my gosh. You are disqualified from expat life. This is no.
Are you gonna take over the podcast now?
Yeah, seriously, Jackie, the view from Peru, because Chris doesn't know.
Yeah, that's fair. So awesome places to go visit, and we are going to circle back to more about what to do, travel plans, and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But before we dive into all of that, I was just wondering, with COVID-19, first off, how did that affect the travel industry?
Oof, yeah.
And then how did actually let's just start there for now, right?
Yeah.
How did that affect travel, and what should people do now?
Yeah.
And September, October 2021 to travel well during this weird time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, COVID-19 obviously took a huge blow on the travel industry. I mean, it was devastating. I mean, my agency, for example, I think we had to, we held on to people for as long as we could, but we did end up having to do layoffs of over 50% of the company, and most places are like that, even big brands like Marriott. But for me, like, where it hit the hardest is obviously seeing the local partners that we work with. I mean, our tour guides, our drivers, who are just, amazing local Peruvian people who didn't have work for almost a year.
Yeah.
So that was really hard, being part of that tourism family. You get to know these people, and then you're just hurting for them because they don't have the work that they're used to having. So it's one of those things that obviously I know this is kind of an iffy time to travel. Some people feel really comfortable with it, some people don't. But I would say if you feel comfortable to travel, if you can travel responsibly, I mean, this is the time. Not only because you're going to see Machu Picchu unlike any other time in history. I mean, there's almost no one there. It will never be this way again.
What was that? What was the big announcement they just made about Machu Picchu?
Yeah, so they did...
last week when this is recorded?
Yeah, they did reduce the capacity at Machu Picchu even more, just because of concerns about the Delta variant. Not because it's been a huge deal in Peru, but because it's such a big deal in the rest of the parts of the world. And obviously those are the people coming to Machu Picchu, so they wanted to make sure that it was even more taken care of. But yeah, like you're saying, I mean, that means you have Machu Picchu even more to yourself. So not only is that, I mean, literally it will never be this way again. So if you can go to Machu Picchu right now, go. Not only because you're going to have an amazing experience, but also because you're going to be really investing in the local economy.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people who, like I said, they haven't worked for a year. Yeah. They've been living off their savings. They're barely making it month to month. And so you can feel good knowing that you're getting to see this world wonder almost in a private experience, and you're supporting the tour guide's family, and you're supporting the driver's family, and you're investing back into the economy. And so it's a really neat time to travel, but at the same time, you were saying, what should you do to travel, I guess, responsibly, or how should you go about that? I mean, obviously Peru has different regulations as far as COVID than other parts of the world. So you need to educate yourself on what does Peru require? Am I comfortable with that? For example, Peru is still requiring masks in both indoors and outdoors. And in some places, they require double masks. Okay, well, I know that a lot of my clients who are from the U.S., for example, they're like, well, I haven't had to wear a mask now for months. I don't want to wear a mask.
Yeah.
I'm like, well...
if we're cashing out $1,000.
Yeah.
It was really a mask to go see a wonder of the world.
Sure. Well, and I mean, I feel that way, but I also understand my clients' preferences. If they don't feel comfortable to wear masks, they don't feel comfortable. But then it's not the time to travel. So first, you have to make sure that you can respect the country that you're visiting, whether that be Peru or wherever you go. Respect whatever they have in place, because you are a visitor to their country. It's not you're bringing your country's regulations in your country. No, you come and you get to visit this country's, highlights while you respect their regulations, So that's the first thing I would say, is just to educate yourself on, what is Peru requiring, to make sure you feel comfortable with it. And then the second thing I would say, even though, of course, I work for a travel agency, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but I do recommend, if you're going to invest into a big trip right now, If you go through an agency, you're going to save yourself so much headache. For example, with this whole reducing the capacity of Machu Picchu. Well, we had clients that were supposed to be going on those dates that all of a sudden they didn't have permits.
Yeah.
Well, who took care of that? We did. We worked around the clock to rearrange their trips, to flip things around. Well, maybe you were supposed to be at Machu Picchu on Monday. Well, now you're going to go on Thursday, and rescheduled all their trains and rescheduled all their tours. We took care of all of that. And so it's one of those things that right now, because COVID regulations are changing, if you go through an agency, they're going to be on top of that, and they're going to make sure that you get taken care of no matter what. So
that's a really good point. Because I know that, like, a lot of us probably think we can do it by ourselves, and to some degree we can.
Of course.
It's all the internet.
Sure.
But there's so many changes that happen so quickly, right? And if this is like your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or, you don't want to miss seeing whatever it is, and you're going very much for tourism instead of maybe ministry. During this season, during this weird pandemic time, it probably is smarter to go through a tourist industry, at least have some really secure contacts in the country that you're going to.
Exactly.
To keep you in the news about everything.
To keep you updated. For example, even recently, Peru was Peru was allowing PCR and antigen tests from within, 3 days. Well, then they changed it that if it's an antigen test, it's only within 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
Well, what if you didn't know?
Yeah.
You get to the airport, you miss your flight.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of worth it, like you said. If you don't go through an agency, even just to have maybe a tour guide that you hire or something, and they're going to be in the know about that kind of stuff so that they can let you know so that you don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yeah.
And so kind of talking about COVID, how did that affect you personally, and how did that affect you and your coworkers and everything like that?
Yeah, that was really hard. I guess I'll go with my coworkers and such first. One of the reasons that I love my agency and I love my job is because I work with some of the best people in the world. We had such a cool team, people from the US, people from Canada, people from Norway, people from England, people from all over the world. And so it was just such a neat kind of little travel family that we created. And so whenever we went into quarantine here in Peru, we stopped seeing those people every day. And so that was really hard, because this kind of community that you'd built, now you don't see them. But then even apart from that, obviously, as I mentioned, once we held on to as everyone in our agency was given a job until the end of the year, 2020. But then after that, we did have to start making some tough decisions. And so for us, it wasn't just, people in the company got laid off. It was your friends, it was people that you know deeply. You've been to their weddings, you've been to their birthday parties, and so it was really hard in that aspect of, you care about these people so much, and seeing them go through that difficult time was a big challenge. For me personally, it was a challenge, but also it was a really cool testament to me of like God's grace on my life. I was living here by myself in Peru. I had an apartment on my own. And I just wasn't sure, should I stay in Peru? Should I go back to the US? How long is this going to last? Of course, at first everyone was like, oh, it's just 2 weeks. Then it turned into a month. Then it turned into 2 months. And so it was one of those things where should I stay? Yes. Should I stay? Should I go home? And just the way that God provided at every opportunity, like someone to sublease my apartment, a way to get back to the US, a remote job while I was living in the US, a place to live, like God just provided at every opportunity. So even though it was a hard time for me, I would actually say it was huge for my faith to see God like in the midst of all of that chaos. Chaos is going to happen. We live in a broken world, unfortunately, and we are going to see things like pandemics and natural disasters and things like that. And I'm not saying that means that in the midst of all of that, God's going to provide you a Lamborghini and you're going to be living the high life. But, I believe that God cares about his people, and he is going to be there in the midst of it to help them. And that's what I saw during the pandemic, was the way that God took care of me around every corner.
And eventually at one point, it became a opportunity for you to go stateside for a bit,
Mhm.
right? And see your family,
Yep.
see some friends.
Yep. Yep.
And
I was in the States for almost a year.
that's insane.
It was crazy.
And that had really been the first time in what, 5-ish years or something?
Yeah,
Like
like
it's been a
6.
good chunk.
Yeah,
up there?
I mean, I think it was the longest that I'd spent in the U.S. since like 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah. So that was, even though that was something I never expected, it ended up being amazing.
Hmm.
I mean, it was almost, Chris and I think we both, we have we live here, but we have family that's stateside.
Yeah.
And so we keep up with them and we go visit once a year, but you're there for usually a week or 2 weeks. So you get in the highlights of what's happening in people's lives, but you're not living their day-to-day life with them. This was such a cool opportunity because it was almost like I got to re-know my brother. And I got to, my friend who has 5 kiddos, they know who I am. But this time I got to go to their swim meets and, like be there for that. And so it was kind of a neat opportunity to, God really blessed me with the opportunity to just be involved in their day-to-day lives again.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it. But I love being back too, so, it was a blessing. I'm very thankful for the time I was there, and I'm thankful now that I've had the opportunity to come back.
Your grace amazes me. You love me constantly.
If you could tell us a little bit more about, like what Peruvian dishes are a must. Like if people are making a bucket list or,
Yeah.
they're traveling to okay, I need to try 3 great authentic Peruvian dishes.
Yep.
What would they be?
Yep.
According to Jackie Becker.
Yeah. Okay, so I like to divide this out by types of food. So
You've really thought about this.
Peruvian cuisine is a big deal. I mean, this is something. People travel literally across the world to Peru to come eat. So this is a very big deal. So the first I would say seafood, right? So for seafood, obviously Peru is famous for its ceviche. That's something that you would eat usually in Lima. You can get ceviche in other places, but Lima's the best place to have ceviche. And it's basically not raw fish, but it's fish that's cooked in the lime juice, so it's not extremely hot or cooked fish. Not raw, but not fully cooked. It's served cold, but it's really good. So seafood, I would say for sure, if you're going to be in Lima, try ceviche. I mean, that's top of the list for sure. Or if you're not really into the not super cooked thing, I would do arroz con mariscos, which is basically rice that has a lot of seafood mixed in with ají, which is a Peruvian spice, and so that's amazing. If you like beef, or if you want to go beef dish, obviously lomo saltado. Lomo saltado is extremely famous across the world. It's my brother's favorite Peruvian dish.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he loves. So it's basically these beef strips that are seasoned in Peruvian spices, and then they're sauteed with tomatoes and onions, and they serve that over rice, but also with French fries. So maybe not the healthiest choice, but so good. So good. Love lomo saltado. If you want to go chicken, I would do ají de gallina. Ají de gallina is... ají, of course, is that Peruvian spice that I mentioned. So they take the chicken and they shred it, and then they make this mixture, kind of this cream that's with ají and milk and all these other things that they put in there, and then they put it in with the shredded chicken. So it's this very creamy, nice chicken mix, and then they serve that over rice and usually a piece or 2 of potato. Another thing that's kind of big here is they put hard-boiled eggs on it. So that's kind of something you'll see in a lot of Peruvian cuisine. They serve it with a hard-boiled egg. I don't know why, but it's really good. So yeah, so I eat it.
It works.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, I just go for it. Just eat it. Just enjoy it. And then the last, if you're a vegetarian and you don't eat any kind of meat, there's a sauce in Peru called huancaína. What's in it? I'm not sure, but it's really good. And it's called pasa la huancaína, which is basically the pasta with that huancaína sauce, and it's really good. So yeah, if you're a vegetarian, you can still try some, really great Peruvian flavors.
Yeah. And those are, some of my top favorites as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to throw in salchipapa.
That's one of my personal favorites. I love salchipapa.
I don't think you need to visit Peru for salchipapa, but if it's like 10 at night and you're like, what should I go for? Go to salchipapa.
I love salchipapa.
Yeah,
so
it's literally just hot dogs and French fries. You cut up the hot dog, you throw it all in with the French fries. You got your mayonnaise, with the Peru mayonnaise is actually way better.
Yes.
Because they use like lime and lemon and like
so good.
everything. It just tastes different and so much better. And then like there are other creams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the perfect junk food.
It's
so
the
good. Perfect junk
it's
food.
So good. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But like what's weird is like some of the restaurants that we'll probably be talking about here in a bit, like they really class it up.
Oh yeah.
And like they're using like
chorizo,
like,
or like they serve it
imported sausage
I
from like
know.
Italy.
They try
Spain.
to make this literally French fry and hot dog dish classy.
But they do. And like that's the thing. They're like using like different types of potato. Peru has over 500 different types of potato.
Mm-hmm.
They don't consider sweet potato. They consider that its own kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So who knows how many other hundreds or dozens or hundreds of types of potato if you threw in camote or sweet potato. So they're using different kinds of potatoes. They're frying them differently. They're toasting them, baking them, putting that with all different types of sausages.
Yeah,
it's actually really good.
I mean,
I love it. Speaking of restaurants, let's talk like high tier, mid tier. Probably shouldn't. If you're here for 1 week tier.
There are those. Yes.
And they're fun. So what would be like? You're not worried about price. They're just gonna go all out. Yeah. Where should people go? Yeah. Give us like a couple of. Or you're here for an anniversary, right? Maybe you live here. Yeah. And you're like, it's an anniversary. It's a really special date. I kind of need to like step it up. Yeah. Or if you're coming down, Chris. Or if you're coming down or whatever, like the anniversary and like special date that might have been. I have
clients. I have clients celebrating anniversaries all the time, so it could be for them too. Yeah.
So what would be kind of like your top tier restaurants that you would recommend? Yeah. While here in Lima.
Sure. So Lima, the great thing about Lima is because it's known for its culinary scene, there is a little bit of everything, right? The top tier, top recommendation that I would probably make in Lima is Central. So Central is a big deal. It's owned by a famous Peruvian chef named Virgilio Martinez. Actually, we have a partnership with Virgilio Martinez. So if you book with my agency, just so you know, I can get you a table at Central before it opens up to the general public. So just a little, a little pro there of going with an agency. But, Central is, it's really interesting. So if you're looking for, traditional Peruvian food, maybe it's not where you want to go. But if you're looking for a memorable, incredible, inspirational experience with food, Central is the place. So basically Virgilio, he isn't trying to show Peruvian food. What he's trying to do is show Peru using food. So when you go to Central, his menu is based off of the different altitudes in Peru. So Peru has everything. There's the sea, there's the jungle, then there's the Andes and Machu Picchu. So those are all located at different altitudes. So his menu is based off of different altitudes. So first you go there and you try things from the sea. Then you travel up to part of the Andes. Then you go back down to the jungle. Then you go back up. And so it's this really neat experience where they show you traditional ingredients from those altitudes, but they present it in kind of a more experimental way. So you're not going to go there and get a plate of pasta. You're going to go and you're going to get a bowl of something you don't recognize using these ingredients, and the food is phenomenal. So you get to learn a lot about Peru. You get to have this amazing culinary experience. So Central would be for sure top tier, top choice.
Weren't you telling us the other day that it's like one of the top 5 restaurants in the world? Or
exactly.
Something?
So Central was the number 5 restaurant in the whole world. I believe right now it's number 6. Don't know what happened there, but it's definitely in the top 10 in the whole world. That's awesome. And obviously when you're thinking, wow, top 10 restaurant in the whole world, you're thinking this is going to be a pricey experience. It's a pricey experience, but what would you think you're going to spend at a restaurant that's one of the top 10 in the world?
In my mind, when I'm hearing like top 5, top 10 restaurants from what I've seen on like Netflix and like YouTube and everything, I'm guessing $800-$900. Yeah. So like way out of budget.
Yeah. So Central is actually more like depending on the experience you choose, you can choose different altitudes and different experiences.
Like different levels or
right, exactly.
number of courses.
Yes, number of courses that you're choosing. But basically, a dinner at Central can be about 150 per person to like 300 per person. And we're talking one of the best restaurants in the world. So this is a really cool opportunity. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. I mean, if you want to, have that, if you want to say you've been to one of the top 5 or top 10, that's the one you want to go to. I mean,
it's obviously $150 is not nothing, but when you're talking a high culinary experience, I mean, you got away with a $300, $400 culinary experience. That's one of the top restaurants in the world. So it's a great plus, Yeah.
And how about, what would be like another example of like a really good,
or like a top tier
restaurant here in Peru?
Yeah. So Lima also has like two other restaurants that are in the top, I believe, 50 in the world, but obviously top rated restaurants in the world. So one is called Maido, and it's a mix. It's called Nikea food, which is basically a mix of Peruvian ingredients with Japanese ingredients. So it's really, really amazing. So obviously the fusion there is very unique. You can find those kinds of restaurants all throughout Peru, but Maido has really done it extremely well. Yes. So Maido is another place that, like you said, if you're celebrating an anniversary or you're really looking for just unique food at a really high level, Maido would be another place to go. The other one is Ashton Gaston. So Ashton Gaston is a famous chef in Peru, Gaston Aquario. He and his wife started Ashton and Gaston, and it's in a beautiful refurbished mansion in San Isidro. So not only is the place beautiful, but the food is really good. And the special thing about Ashton and Gaston is what they're doing is they are doing just traditional Peruvian food really, really well. So if you're looking just to try the most famous Peruvian dishes, really excellent Peruvian
like
food.
Your
lomo saltado, your gallina, your ceviche, even things like that. Ashton Gaston would be, one of the world famous places to try this food. So if you want to try
the best normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Right? Because
recognizable.
Since that is not normal. Like,
no.
That's the type of stuff you would see like on like those Netflix shows or
yeah, Central is on an episode of The Chef's Table on Netflix. Awesome. So yeah, really, really good. But yeah, so that's like if you want to try Peruvian food in a very experimental way.
And so what was the name of the one where it's like
normal food? Yeah, Astrid and Gaston.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he also is the owner of Papachos.
Yes.
Right. So
he owns a lot of different restaurants.
Do we want to talk about the next tier down and start with Papachos? I mean, or is Papachos not even on that?
I wouldn't put it in the middle tier, but what's fun...
I love burgers.
So Gaston, what's really special about Gaston is he has this Ashton Gaston, one of these world famous restaurants, but Gaston is just a culinary master, basically. And so he's created all of these other restaurants that are kind of at different levels of accessibility. Does that make sense? So Ashton Gaston is up here. Then there's one in the middle, it's called Panchita, and that's kind of a bit more, you go dressed up. It's not a super pricey experience, but pricier. And then you have kind of his more entry-level experience, which is called Tanta. So Tanta is, it's another restaurant that just serves really, really good traditional Peruvian food. Maybe not as high-end or classy as Ashton Gaston, but still very, very good. So you can go there and
it's like a legit restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not, the higher level.
No,
it's a legit normal restaurant.
Yeah. I would go dressed like this to Tanta. I don't need to get dressed up for that, but it's going to be really good Peruvian food. You can get a traditional plate of Peruvian food for probably somewhere between 30 and 45 soles, which right now is like $10. So that's I would put that kind of in like a mid-tier option, is either Panchita or Tanta, depending on kind of the different price ranges you want to go into, but it's owned by a world famous chef, so you're gonna get amazing Peruvian food at a more accessible price.
Where would you put La Capuchiana and Rosa Nautica?
Yeah, so the Wakapukiana, the restaurant that we talked about that Chris has been to but hasn't been to the Ruin, which whatever, but
makes me a bad Peruvian.
So
that makes me a good Peruvian. It makes me a bad expat.
Yes, definitely. All right, I'll take that. Okay. The Wakapukiana I would probably put in the level of like Tanta and Panchita. Okay. So not top tier, but like a good mid tier option. You know, the food at Wakapukiana I haven't heard is like, just to die for, but you get really good Peruvian food plus that experience of seeing it next to a famous Peruvian ruin. I mean, that's
pretty unbeatable.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's the only restaurant I've heard that has, you know,
a ruin
a pre-Inca ruin built into it.
So Virgilio has a restaurant. Virgilio Martinez, owner of Central, he has another restaurant in the Sacred Valley called Meal, and that overlooks the Morai concentric circles. That's phenomenal. I mean, that's really, really, really cool. But as far as Lima, the Wakapukiana has the ruin view.
Yeah, awesome. And then let's talk. We're not quite at the street food where you have to worry about, you know.
Let's talk like you might get like
not
food
there
poisoning.
Yet,
food
but
poisoning.
like also, you know, just so people know, like there are places like Papachos which are just more fun. You know, it's the what's his name again? Gaston. Right, that's his burger joint.
Yep.
But it's like a classier burger joint. It's not McDonald's. It's
they've got like gourmet burgers there.
Like a classier than Red Robin.
Oh yeah,
classier
than Red Robin. Yeah,
but around there ish.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's a burger place.
Like you're gonna go there when you go to the movies or something.
Sure.
Or, you know, more casual date. Awesome burgers. I really love burgers. And those are some of the best burgers I've had in Peru.
They're
and
really
the States.
good, and they have really good mac and cheese. So you know, it's got something for everybody.
And anywhere else kind of notable in that area, the more casual dining.
Kind of like a mid-tier option.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is there's so many places. I mean, so many places. You know, we could talk about places like Lamar, which is famous for ceviche and seafood, or, you know, we could talk about a place in Barranco called Isolina. That's just another really...
Oh, that one's really cool.
Yeah, Isolina's...
Could you actually tell us about, like, the whole ideology of, like, the giant bowls, the family?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the ideology of Isolina.
I mean, not the ideology, but, like, the serving style of, like, making it kind of like your grandma's kitchen or something.
Yeah. So they give you big portions so that it's basically you eat it together like a family experience, but very good Peruvian food. So, you know, that's another kind of nice mid-tier option. But Isolina is the type of place that my colleagues who are Peruvian, when they talk about going to a really good Peruvian place, they go to Isolina. So, you know, that's a place that, you know, okay, even people who live in Peru love this place. I mean, it's great food.
And, like, the way I've heard it, like, I've been there too, and I think it's a really good description, is, like, if your grandma, whether she is or not, right, but if your grandma is a really good cook, like, if your grandma didn't have to worry about budget for Sunday dinner, your Peruvian grandma, this is what she would be doing, essentially.
Sure,
right? And it's true. That's exactly the vibe you get. You get these large tables, large dishes, you order, like, 2 or 3 for the entire table.
Kind of just share. Yeah.
It's a really cool vibe. I really like that place.
Yeah.
Now let's talk like street food.
Yeah. That's where we're talking about like food poisoning potential, like carrier Toms. Yeah.
Can be really worth it.
Or not. Yes.
So do you have any recommendations for those type of areas?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so the first place I went, I'm not going to put it in the possible food poisoning level, but I wouldn't put it in like mid-tier level. I'd put it like low tier. Is La Lucha. Are you familiar with La Lucha? Okay, so La Lucha is like a famous sandwich place, so it's not fancy in any way. You just run up, you grab your sandwich, you know, stuff like that. But what they're really famous for is they have these French fries that are made out of potato. You can
I guess we're talking like fast food and below.
Fast food and below. Yeah. So La Lucha has those famous French fries that are only made from potatoes found in Peru. So that's like really special. You know, you get these like fancy French fries. But I mean, it's definitely like a very casual, fun place. And La Lucha's a big deal here. I mean, there's so many La Luchas throughout Miraflores, which is where a lot of people will stay when they come to Peru, or come to Lima, excuse me. So La Lucha's fun. That, I'm not going to say food poisoning. That's just like a great
casual dining. You don't have to worry about your budget most of the time. You know,
right.
It's just, you can just go there.
So more on the iffy level. Chris and I actually met when we were both kind of helping with a nonprofit that we both kind of worked with for a time. And at that time that I was helping with the nonprofit, I had a budget about this big. I mean, very, very, very tiny budget. So if I was going out to eat, I was going to a place called Menu. So Menu is something that you do in Peru that they basically charge you a flat fee. So maybe let's say it's 10 sole menu or 15 sole menu or 20 sole menu. And then they give you choices of what you could choose within that price range. So, you know, for a 15 sole menu, maybe you get an entrée or an entrada, which is basically the appetizer. They give you an entrada and then they give you a main dish. and then it usually comes with a juice or something.
Yeah.
So when we were working at this nonprofit, I would be hungry, but I had no money. So I found this menu that was really close to the place where we were working. And they had a menu marino, which is basically a seafood menu. So instead of paying 10 soles for it, you had to pay 20 soles. But again, the $1 is 4 soles. So we're talking, you know, what, like $5-10 for this meal. I mean, it's nothing. But they had a seafood menu, and they had arroz con mariscos on there, and I love arroz con mariscos. And I tried it, and to this day, it is my favorite arroz con mariscos.
Really?
Like, I have had arroz con mariscos in lots of different restaurants because I love arroz con mariscos, and to this day, my favorite arroz con mariscos is at that menu.
And that's one of the funny things about Peru is you'll find these random hole-in-the-wall restaurants. They look really sketchy, but they actually have, like, the best, or they have the worst. And
yes,
you gotta, like, trust the people.
Yes. Yes.
You gotta build up your immunity a little by little.
Yes.
And then you just gotta go for it and see what happens.
Yep.
But
Yeah. So if you want to go, it's called Dia y Noche. It's on Angamos.
Angamos, yeah.
Yep.
Just kind of broadly speaking, you know, chifa is huge.
Yeah, chifa's a
could
big
you
deal.
explain to the audience a little bit about what chifa is?
Yeah. So chifa it's similar to Nikkei food, but much more day to day. I mean, think about when you're ordering Chinese takeout.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that. Basically,
it is Peruvian Chinese.
Yeah, it's Peruvian Chinese food. So but it's a mix of Peruvian foods with Chinese foods, and you have this whole new culinary thing called chifa. But yeah, so chifa's huge. There's probably 3 chifas on every corner, not just one chifa on every corner. There's so many chifas. But yeah, people love it, and it's again one of those things where you usually get big kind of plates or orders, and everybody shares.
And like, I'm not a huge history person just in general, let alone, you know, specifically to Peru, but from what I've gathered, it seems like there's a lot of Asian influence around the world wars.
Yep.
And so correct me if you know anything more, help me go deeper.
I'm not a huge chifa fan, so I don't know all the history of the chifa, but yes, I know that
there is a lot of that Eastern influence dating back from like the 40s when, you know, those parts of Asia were kind of tanking, and so a lot of them came to Peru and other Latin American countries, you know, right across the river, the ocean, the river. The metaphorical river, you know, the pond. Yes. And so we actually do have a lot of Asian influences, even in the TV. Yeah. It was actually really normal to, like, anime's huge here, and like it was way bigger down here than it was in the States in the 80s and 90s. And part of that all traces back to, from what I understand, I could be totally off. If you know more about this, please contact me. And I would love to have you on a future episode.
Just an episode about chifa and the history.
And like the Asian influence in Peru, and I think like you know, they have less taxes, so like they like the car manufacturing, you know, Mitsubishi and all those.
Stay tuned for the next episode because
if
we'll
you
find
know
out there
about the Asian influence historical of Peru, please let me know because I've always wondered. But yeah, that's why we have chifa.
Yes,
essentially, and chifa's really cool. It's not like, I mean, it's kind of like American Chinese takeout, but it's
also different. Yeah, it's got its own flavors, its own spin on things. So yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it to stop into a chifa.
And we are wrapping up here because I know you got a place to be pretty soon.
Gotta go pick up a client from the airport. So
is that what it is? Awesome.
Yep.
That's exciting. So some general tourist tips, just rapid fire.
Okay. Rapid fire. All right.
What should you bring?
To Peru. Right now, you need to bring your negative COVID test. Okay. That would be number 1. Other things would be layers. The name of the game, especially in the Machu Picchu area, is layers because you're up at altitude. So when the sun's out, it's hot, and then when the sun goes down, it's cold. So you want to bring your layers for sure. Sunscreen, because at altitude the sun is stronger, so you will get burned in a matter of like 3 minutes, especially if you look like me. So yeah, layers, sunscreen, your negative COVID test, and then obviously, you know, your camera. All right, awesome. Would you recommend a camera, or is your cell phone going to be good enough? I mean, I have an iPhone 12, which takes phenomenal pictures. So, wow. Okay, patuca is basically the Spanish word for being like uppity and snotty. But I have an iPhone 12 because I work in travel, and I want to be able to send pictures to my clients. So if you have a phone like that, just bring your phone. if you are really into photography, bring your camera. I have a lot of clients who will come with their nicer cameras and take phenomenal pictures.
Awesome. Couple tips about how to not get scammed and or robbed.
Oh, wow. Like going through an agency, just in general?
Just in general. Like, well, if you're in Peru, if you're by yourself or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So Peruvians are wonderful, phenomenal people. But Peruvians are going to take one look at your non-Peruvian face and go, I can charge this person double. So let's say, for example, you're in Cusco, you want to find a tour to take you to Rainbow Mountain. Okay? There's going to be a lot of different agencies offering that same tour. Or a lot of different, tour guides that are like, hey, Rainbow Mountain. So what I would recommend, go to the first one and say, hey, we want to do Rainbow Mountain. How much is your full day tour? Get the price. Then go to the next one. Then go to the next one. And compare. Because someone is going to take a look at your beautiful gringo face and say $100. Whereas a lot of people are going to charge you way less than that. And so you just want to kind of go around and get a general idea of the price before you commit. Because if you do go with just the first one, there is a big chance that you're going to get scammed.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yep.
How about robbed?
Robbed. So, for example, I mentioned that my friend had her phone stolen right out of a taxi. So when you're in a taxi, for example, if you want to keep the windows open, that's fine, but then you need to put your phone away. For example, one time even we had a client, and this is the only time that's happened. My agency is wonderful. But we had a client who was coming back from the airport. We picked them up, and she had her purse on her lap. And so someone saw them at a stoplight and busted the window to try to take her purse. So if you are driving kind of through some sketchy areas, just put your stuff down. Don't be handling it in your hands or keeping it on your lap. You want to just put it away. And honestly, the same thing for if you're walking around like Lima or Cusco or anything. You don't really want to be walking around, with your phone like this. You can take photos and everything and text, but maybe just not like, out there where someone can just grab your stuff. And then, if you're going to carry a backpack or anything, you just want to make sure everything's really closed so that no one can easily zip it open and take your stuff.
All right. Very cool. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie, so much for coming
Yeah.
on. You had some really awesome insights that not a lot of other people will have due to, the job you do and all your experience with traveling. So thank you so much.
It was super fun. I hope you guys like it. Hope you get inspired to come to Peru. Peru's phenomenal. And I'd love to help you too if you want to.
And for those of us that live here, maybe we know.
Maybe you should go to some of these places. Oh my gosh. I'm going to take him to the Larco Museum like next week. Him and Paola.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and thank you guys for checking this out, either the audio version or on video. And by the way, if you have any ideas for how to do the video better, please let me know. Let me know how the angles worked and the sound and everything. I want to do the video more and more when the guests like Jackie and some other ones we have lined up in the future are down for it, because video can be pretty cool. So if you can help me out with that, either in the comments or whatever, or at our Facebook and Instagram, which is just CNP Fry, The View from Peru. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you. That was good.
All right.